Hello everyone, thank you very much for being here today on our webinar this morning, where we're going to talk about the top mistakes your bookkeeper is making or is possibly making, specifically in the food manufacturing industry. Cool. So before we get onto it, I'll quickly talk about myself. So my name is Neha, and I run a small bookkeeping and training business called Sum and Substance, where we assist business owners in ensuring that their books are in order, their accounting systems are in order, and they actually get the correct information from their accounting system to enable them to make good business decisions. We also run future-proof accountants, where we assist other accounting firms with their systems and ensuring that they are working efficiently as well. I'm a CPA qualified myself, and a BAS agent, work very closely with lots of different systems. So Xero, MyOb, and Workflow Max, of course, are the highlights. Super passionate about systems and also investigating and researching about new systems that could actually help business owners save the most valuable asset we have, which is the time. Also passionate about clean books. I really get upset if I look at the books and things are just not in order. You can look at the profit and loss and balance sheet. It just looks really awkward. So really, really passionate about cleaning those books. So what are we going to cover today? So what we've done is those mistakes that we're going to talk about today, we've really divided them into three portions. The first one we're going to talk about is the software mistakes that we see. Then we'll go through the bookkeeping, which is going to cover the major part of the talk this morning. And then we'll talk about the dashboard and making you a mobilepreneur. Beautiful. So let's move to the software problems, right? So what all softwares have we got? If we look at, any business, the main softwares that are used in any business are your accounting softwares, a software that could help you with your expense management or or expenses, right? Or you also need a software for tracking your timesheets, giving the roster to the shift to your employees. You also need a good system for your communication, right? So we'll touch on those things now. So let's start with the accounting software. What I'll do is I'll give you an example of, it's going to be a mix of different clients where we've seen these problems and what we've done to solve them. And those, you could relate to those and fix those things up in your business as well. So first thing first, so accounting software. There's a few softwares available in the market. So MyOb, Xero, QuickBooks are kind of on the, they're quite popular ones. Each accounting software is good for something, right? Now, you, as a food manufacturer, you have certain needs, right? So there's certain accounting needs that you will have. And every food manufacturing business is different as well, right? So you want to see what is important to your business, and then you make a decision, okay? So, for example, MyOb is great if you want to have in one system, you want to have inventory, you want to have the accounting, it's great for that sort of businesses. Whereas if you want a system which would actually handle fixed asset register in it and create the depreciation entries automatically, you would want something like Xero, right? So different systems, different needs. So you want to pick up the correct software. So I'll give you an example of one of the clients that we assisted where they were using MyOb, and it was the desktop version. At that time, the desktop versions existed, right? These days, it's all on cloud. So what happened was with this particular example, the client didn't trust the books at all. He would make decisions on the basis of the feel rather than on the numbers, and that's pretty dangerous. That was a big red flag for us. That obviously meant that the books, there's something not right with the books, which was then led us to obviously discussing with the client what they want, and we helped them set up Xero Now this person also has the mobile app, and the business decision making has become much more easier from the financial point of view. So looking at different accounting softwares and what is in the best interest of your business is the key. So you want to make sure that whatever system you use is doing justice to your business. Then we move on to expenses side, right? With the expenses, you have different systems, right? You've got Receipt Bank, you've got Entry, HubDoc, there's many. Now, again, the other thing this is the other mistake due to which this point has come up is we see a lot of bookkeepers, not saying everyone, a lot of bookkeepers do claim GST on expenses without even looking at the invoice. So we should have invoices for all the expenses, especially which are more than 75 if you want to claim GST, with the proper ABN and everything. So that's very dangerous. So ideally you should have, a system, a cloud system, which could save the document, especially now with pandemic. We've all learned a lesson that it's important to have those cloud systems in place. So what we did with this client as well was we set their Xero up, we connected them to Receipt Bank, whereby all of their staff members, so for example, themselves as directors and the production manager, who sometimes would go out and purchase things, and then previously they wouldn't be able to find the receipt for it because it's gone in the pocket and in the oil, it's just vanished. So to avoid those sort of situations, it's probably best to have some kind of system set up for your receipts. The other benefit, obviously, to having something like that is then it can get connected to your accounting software, which automatically gets entered. Other than saving your receipts, that's obviously great. The other benefit also is that that it allows you to have less data entry time because things are getting automatically entered. So that's great, right? The other issue we found with this particular customer was there was no system for timesheets or rostering whatsoever. They were doing it all manual. So we then, for this one, we use Deputy. There's a lot of timesheet systems, and use the one that's right for you. And if you've got questions, feel free to contact us. With the timesheet system, we connected them with Deputy. So Deputy allows you to roster. It connects with Xero. The timesheet that gets entered into Deputy, you can export them onto Xero and pay your staff. It's really, really straightforward, right? Once it starts working correctly. So that's another big mistake that we found. Now, the other thing, which is a suggestion in the systems, which is not particularly just a mistake, but when you're using a system, right, in a business, try looking at systems which will talk to each other. So, for example, in this instance, with Deputy and Xero, the client or the office manager has to put information once in their Deputy, and most of the information flows through into Xero, barring one or two, which they've like things like superannuation and stuff. But most of those things integrate, right? So that saves a lot of your time. So you want to get systems which kind of integrates with each other, and that is sometimes can get ignored because you're running a business. You had one problem and you got one system, solved one problem, and then you had another problem, you got another system. But sometimes in getting those systems in different times, what it can do is you can get systems that are not integrated with each other, which is going to cost your business, right? Let's not go there. Let's try to get systems that are going to be integrated with each other. So the one last thing before we move on to the next area, which is the bookkeeping mistakes, is your communication. We all get inundated with emails at the moment. Inboxes are full. They're getting out of control. Sometimes those are just not the emails from external stakeholders. These emails could be from your internal staff as well. So what we suggest again is having some systems like Slack, for your casual internal communication. or Trello. Trello is great for, people do put meeting notes there next, like so when they do management meeting, they write what is expected of them before the next month. So they know their goals and everything, and they're all in Trello. And everyone knows it because it's been shared amongst the whole team. Cool. So that's about softwares. Now let's move on to the bookkeeping mistakes, which is why we're all here today. So the bookkeeping mistakes, the first one we see is the equipment finance. In your industry, the food manufacturing industry, there's lots of equipment that you have to buy and you have to keep updated, right? Which is fair enough. That's the nature of your industry. The bookkeeping error that we see in that sort of regard is, either the document has not been given to the bookkeeper, the GST interest, so those things are not correctly entered in the books. So for example, when you buy an asset like equipment, and then you get it financed, so there's few areas to this transaction. So when you get financed, you repay it monthly, weekly, or whatever might be the situation. But in that repayment, there's capital there and interest portion as well. So you want to make sure, or your bookkeeper want to make sure that they enter the asset and the finance. It should be shown both in assets and liabilities, and the liability gets reduced by the repayment each month or week or whatever might be the situation. But that repayment has both interest and the capital repayment. So again, I'll just give you an example of the same client. What we noticed was that never ever the equipment finance documents were requested by the bookkeeper or given by the business owner to the bookkeeper. God knows whose problem it was. But the business books were suffering because they didn't have the right information because of the communication problem, because they didn't ask for the right documents, because they just entered it as a repayment. There was no liability created. So lots of those sort of problems that we've seen. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen in your business. A quick check would be to keep an eye on balance sheet. When you look at balance sheet and check balance sheet, you don't want to just look at 1 month as a standalone. You want to see comparative. So if in 1 month you've bought assets and it's not reflected on your balance sheet, hey, that's your red flag. Like, you need to look at why is it not getting added on to the balance sheet. The other problem we've seen is in payroll structure. So when I talk about payroll structure is in regards to your financial statement as well. So in food manufacturing businesses, normally your staff is kind of divided into 2 to 3 parts. So one would be your direct factory staff, and then you have your office staff or your management staff, right? So if you want to divide these salaries into 3 parts, so normally we see salaries are all put into one area, and then when you're looking at your finances at the end of the month or quarter or year, there's no correlation between a salary and your sales. So ideally what should happen is your factory cost is your direct cost, right? Your factory wages. If your sales increases, chances are quite good chances that your factory costs are higher as well, because probably people have done more shifts, there were more orders. But if everything is kind of lumped into one place, you can't make decisions, you can't see, then there's no way for you to check if the salary, the direct or the factory salaries are going higher. Why is sales not increasing? There's something not right. Are we not invoicing correctly? You know, to find problems in any business, financial reports are a great way. But if your financial reports are not conveying to you what it should, then there's no point, right? So you want to make sure the payroll structure in your financial statements is put correctly. Balance sheet. Balance sheet is one document which I have not come across many correct balance sheets. I won't say none. I have, but balance sheet is something that gets ignored, or that's where people don't know the correct allocation. That's where they hide things. So you want to look at your balance sheets. So if you look at your balance sheet and you think the assets and liabilities are over or under as to what you think your business has, there's a good I guess that's a good conversation to have with your accountant or bookkeeper, or it's a good time to get it fixed. So highly recommend. So when you look at balance sheet, your assets and liabilities should reflect exactly what is in your business. Otherwise, they're not giving you the right picture. And to make good business decisions, you want the correct balance sheet. Fixed assets. Now, with fixed assets and depreciation, what I would like to say here is what I have seen, which is very normal, not just in your industry, but across. It becomes more important for your industry, mainly because because you do have lots of assets, right? Lots of fixed assets. So you ideally want to have fixed asset register at your end. Okay, so mostly we've seen that the fixed asset registers get maintained by your accountant. They only do your accounts once a year or maximum twice, if you do tax planning. So there's no point, right? So ideally you should have fixed asset register either in Excel in your premises, internally, or you can have, if you have a system like Xero, you could maintain a fixed asset register in Xero. And then you can run depreciation on a regular basis. So that works really, really well. Again, we want to make sure we have that information internally. Leave provisions. That's one thing that I haven't seen in too many balance sheets or profit and loss. So ideally, you should keep leave provisions on your balance sheet. Now, we recently had in one of those businesses where someone left after about 14 years. And that's the thing about small businesses. We do believe in strong relationships, and long-standing employees are your best assets. But obviously that creates a leave liability, because then they get long service leave and all of that. And that means they probably haven't taken many annual leave as well. So, so you want to have provisions set up separately for the leave provisions, right? Now, this one example that I'm talking about, where one long-standing employee left recently, the business owner was okay, because he is used to looking at his balance sheet. He knew what was coming. There was about $35,000 that he got, this staff member, and without any shock to the business owner. So leave provision is another good thing to be on the balance sheet. So that, if your staff leaves tomorrow, that much money you should have, okay? Month-end closure. This is another thing which, again, I feel like a lot of business owners miss, because they're very busy with their operations. But when you're running a business along with operations, managing everything is equally important as well. So I would highly recommend doing a month-end meeting with your bookkeeper or accountant, or even within yourselves, looking at your balance sheet, profit and loss, and other reports. Like, those are the two main reports I'm talking about. But looking at your accounts receivable, people who owe you money, looking at accounts payable, people you owe money to, those things are really, really important. And again, those are the things that I've seen sometimes are not correct in the books, and that's a problem. So after this webinar, again, I would suggest going back to your books and having a look at them, and hopefully those should be correct. If not, having a conversation and getting it fixed is a good idea. Cool. We'll move towards the last session, last part of the webinar now, which is the dashboard. Now, this is not specifically a mistake, but this is something sometimes people can ignore. So the underlying statement is that business owners need to have good visibility on their financial information in real time, okay? They need to make decisions in and out. Like, this year has been the year of pandemic, right? We've had to make decisions on whether we want to keep staff, whether we don't want to keep staff. Let's change the way we run the business. We have to move to, online sale. Like, there's so much that has changed this year. So business owners had to make quick decisions, right? But if they don't have the financial information, they don't know how much money they have to spend on, say, if they want to get onto a new website, which will allow them to sell online. So that's what I mean by having that dashboard that can be ignored. So the way we work, and again, I'm not trying to boast, but that's, I think we all should do as service providers, is as soon as we start or set up a system for a client, what we do is we set their a Xero app on their phones. Okay, so the applications on their phones, and then what they can do is when they look at the Xero application, they can actually look at the performance, their business performance, their business snapshot, and the bank balance all in one go. So they don't have to log on to the bank separately, right, to look at the information. So really, really important to for us as service providers to set up your mobile phone, with all with the application, so you can actually look at the app and look at your profit and loss, I guess, in one go, look at your bank balances in one go without even having to log on to the bank. You should be able to look at your, business snapshot, and you should be able to understand what's going on in your business in the current month, what was happening in the last month, and what was happening in the last year. So that's the way, ideally, we should set those things up. Hopefully that helps in giving you some understanding of the common mistakes that can be made and how to actually revive your, finance or accounts department of your business, which would then give you more information that you need to run your business. I hope you found it useful. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.